to be delivered. These are your timelines. And what you get out of it, whether it happens, whether it culminates into a beautiful event or something disastrous happens because of something else not related to you, you need to let go of those expectations that, okay, I am putting in my 100%, but 100% might not come back to me. And that you have to be completely fine with that. And that's the whole law of karma that Bhagavad Gita talks about, where do your duty and leave the expectation of any fruits. That's not how it works, and that's what we mean by letting go and
So
doing
I
it.
want to bring in one aspect of it. This is a beautiful thing you reminded me of. We were, I think, a couple of months back, we were doing a not one but two high pressure events at the same time, and I was writing, I think, at least six scripts simultaneously.
Wow.
And I myself was a little concerned because while I've done a lot of things in the 20-25 years that I've spent in the industry in advertising and events now, but the fact that doing six scripts, out of which four are of certain products of the same company with little bit of difference in each product, uh, two two other scripts are of a completely different point of view where the companies are different, the products are different, and I have to deliver at that point. And we had this discussion at 10:30 in the night because the client was sitting in US and he was free then. It was his morning time and he was briefing, and he had just recently rejected, I think, all four scripts. He was the client that we were talking about the four scripts,
Hmm.
and uh, I do not like the fact, but it keeps on happening that the brief comes after I have delivered the scripts.
Wow, that is so common in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Then I was wondering, like you said, it is high pressure. It needs to be delivered, uh, and after I write, there is a lot of work to be done. What I try and do, and I tried and did even then, was bring it down to what can I do. So
Exactly.
I then broke it down into what can I do to what can I do now. What can I do tomorrow morning? What can I do tomorrow afternoon? And then gave my promises to the client that this is what I'm going to deliver. Do not start fighting with me on all four. I'll give you
Correct.
one, or else I'll give you scratch of all four. I don't remember what I really did, but at that point I was clear. So then
Hmm.
we went there, and out of four, I think two got cleared.
Hmm.
Then they said third I like, but I do not like the tonality of the words that you used. Then
Hmm.
we spent one more day. So by then, out of six, there were only three done. But everybody was happy because work was being done. And like you said, sometimes you need to. Uh, there was this. I used to collect quotes, and there used to be this beautiful quote. Then when you stand up to the great bully, the world, and pull out its beard, you realize it's a false beard only to
Hmm.
intimidate you, something on those lines.
Yeah.
So when I started doing this, breaking it down and giving one by one, I realized the deadlines that were given to me were false. They were not
Hmm.
as important as were made out. They were, and they didn't want to lie to me. Just that they were so concerned. The job is so big. How are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? And it went till the nth moment.
Hmm.
But I was very calm and quiet, and I tried to not add to the pressure because internally I also knew that the pressure is there.
Yeah.
And I kept laughing and joking with a junior client, and she
Hmm.
was like, "Okay." And I used to crack jokes, and after the entire job got done, the other two got a little pushed by the client themselves. So luckily, all six fell in place.
Hmm.
And after the job was done, after the event was done, which was 15-20 days later, the client actually called up and said that, please thank Bunty for staying calm. I troubled him a lot. And I didn't even remember after 15 days because I was very clear that only now, okay,
Hmm.
only now, only this. So, how
Hmm.
much ever you're troubling me, I will not look at it cumulatively because cumulatively I can't handle it because I
Absolutely.
am also going crazy inside. So, I will
Yeah.
not allow that. So, this is something I wanted to point out sheerly because a lot of people may not belong to the event industry, people who are watching. They may think, oh, what pressure are they talking about?
Yeah.
But events and advertising always work backwards. Like one of the examples I keep giving, to a lot of friends is that if you are starting a new boutique or any enterprise, you do everything, and on the last day you realize, oh, invite has not been made, or the leaflet which is announcing that we are on has
Yeah,
not been made, and the last person you call is me, and tomorrow
absolutely.
is your opening, so to speak. So we have to
Yeah,
figure out a way to do this faster and faster.
right.
But I think you have to reverse engineer it in your head. You have to
Yeah,
you have to figure out what am I about. So my question to you,
just a minute before you go ahead.
yeah,
I
please.
want to point one thing out. All the pressure that we are talking about the events industry, this is mostly pertaining to India because I've now moved to North America and I do events here, and it's very different.
Yeah,
So you know how when you're talking about the fake timelines or the pressures that we are talking about are very different in India because again, the industry is not as evolved as it is in probably a lot of other parts of the world, and we need to so again like we need to consider what is the society and the industry we are working in because it's different from country to country. And because I just didn't want people to think that that's how events industry is throughout the world because it's
no, yeah,
completely
yeah.
totally in India that it's so
But
indisciplined and unprofessional or whatever you call it. And of course I'm not going to condemn it. I have learned whatever I've learned in my career from that industry, from the people from that industry. So there are a lot of good things as well, but yes, it is quite unprofessional, and we've had to deal with that. So
yeah.
yeah.
So okay. So now then you actually helped me form a question when I didn't have one.
Okay.
So what do you feel vulnerable about at this point of time in the events industry where you're there? I'm trying to make it as practical as possible instead of talking about hypothetical vulnerabilities that we have. We may have, obviously, none of them are to be scoffed at. It's states of the mind, and some days are like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But in terms of practical problems, since we brought up an industry thing here, since everything is sorted, so are you saying there are no problems that happen to you when you're working in either uh, the events industry or yoga? I would want an example where you feel a little underwhelmed actually. Oh, I didn't prepare enough, or I was over prepared, or something else went wrong. Would you be able to give an example?
Yeah, tons of them because now that I'm
Mm.
working with the North American events market, I keep feeling that you know, the point is that the skill sets are the same. The basic skill sets that you need to work in events are the same overall. But the way the industry functions is different, which means that, one of the other things that you have to unlearn a lot. And it's like driving, okay? So when you drive in India and when you come to any other country, you have to unlearn everything that because we don't follow signals, we don't follow the traffic lights, nothing, and everything is on jugaad. And it's the same with the events industry that we do a lot of things in India in the events industry on jugaad. So like it's a verbal, sometimes me and you, it's a verbal confirmation. Like ho jayega na, like this will be done and that's it. And tomorrow I might or you might forget because we've had this conversation literally in the middle of an event and there are 10,000 other things that we both are micromanaging. Here, it's not like that. Everything is documented because it's not about not trusting. And in India it becomes about, oh, trust nahi hai kya, you don't trust me, I said this to you, I gave you my verbal confirmation. But it's not like that. Here it's very clear, documented, because it's not about trusting or not trusting. That's just the way the industry functions. And so small things like that. Obviously jugaad is here as well, but I feel a majority, like I feel 80% of what I did in India in terms of events was on the basis of jugaad. And you know how jugaad is, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't,
Yeah,
because you're literally so these kind of things. And in terms of yoga, again, very yoga is like completely different in the West because they are more about the physical aspects of yoga, and in India where it's a balance of physical and philosophical aspects and the spiritual aspect of it. So here when I teach yoga, people, what they look for is again very like those headstand and those kind of extreme poses, and they are a little away from the spiritual or the philosophical aspect of it. They say that they're interested, but I don't even want to. That's a completely different session that we'll have to do. But yeah, even navigating the yoga world here has been a little different. What people look for in India in terms of yoga and what people look for in the West in terms of yoga is still very different. So yeah.
Yeah, so a basic background question on this. We've talked about vulnerabilities which are pertaining to your field and your expertise as of right now. But one basic vulnerability that I can think of is a person being uh, a stranger in a new country for a while, till whatever
Yeah.
cards and all that you get, green card and this and that, citizenship of another country. Till that happens, I've had friends who moved to Canada, I have relatives in Canada, obviously. Um and I find that uh, there's a lot of stress about till you get it settled. Um, so, can you tell us about certain vulnerabilities that you as a person, instead of being generic, or how it affected you, and what you did to counter that in your own life?
Oh, tons of them. I feel like I've been in a vulnerable spot since the time I moved because what happened is that the pandemic hit us, right? First of all, you're moving to a new country, which means that there's a completely different culture that you're adapting, and it's nowhere close to India. It's again on the on the other end of the spectrum. So, starting with the driving side, what side you're driving, what side of the road you're walking on. So initially, when you're crossing the road, and and we not used to following the signals in India most of the time. So you're just crossing, like if there's nobody on the road and if the traffic light is red, you'll still cross the road, right? Here, you can't do that. Simple things like that where you constantly have to feel that okay, you have to watch out for the laws and the rules, and that's completely fine. You get used to it. And then you're constantly looking at the wrong side of the road while crossing because in India it's different. So these are silly things. These are silly things, but they start building up. There are a lot of these things that keep building up, and you feel like you're constantly in that state of A, learning, B, unlearning, and third, you feel vulnerable because you suddenly feel like I don't know anything. You feel very new. You feel like this environment is completely new for me. Now, when you go into the work zone and when you go into the career and the professional aspect of it, like I said, because events is fully on Jugaad and it's a completely unstructured industry there, when you come here, you feel that, oh my God, everything that I've done for all these years, I'll have to A, unlearn that, and then what is left of me? So what do I have to contribute as a project manager, right? Like, so in India, you exactly know if you have a project, these are the things you need to do. You can make your checklist. Here, you're starting from the point of unlearning. So everything that you did in India, you're like, will this work here or no? So you're constantly evaluating your way of working, your style of working, the level of your own professionalism. Communication is different. Like here, thank you, please. Like people are big on that. In India, it's very like, hey Bunty, can you just give me this in mana? I need it. You understand, right? Here, you can never be sure if that will work or no because people might also the whole work life balance, right? Here, people will not call you on a weekend if it's not a scheduled meeting or an event asking for things. It's not normal to do that, and that's great. But we are used to it. We are used to working with that, right? So again, changing your own attitude, and you feel like a lot of times we used to crib about this in India. Like I used to crib about these things in India, but I'm like, I'm carrying the style and I'm carrying the same attitude when I come here. So starting from changing that within your own mind, saying that no, this is not cool. This is not cool, so don't bring that here and try to, implement or work the same way. So yeah, it is a vulnerable feeling, right? Because you're like, okay, but that means that I don't know so many things, and I need to learn so many things. And as you grow up, like the older you are, I feel the more vulnerable you feel because there's also that society pressure that by so and so time you need to be well settled. By so and so time you need to have these things on the checklist. But when you move here, you're starting from zero. You don't have any of those things. You don't have a social circle. You don't have family. You might have, or you might not have family here. You don't have a clear career path. You have to be in a position. You have to be in the vulnerable position of asking, which again if you're moving from a country, if you're a certain age, you're already established in your career. You're not used to asking for work or jobs. And that, that putting yourself in that spot again, saying, hey, give me work. And, I'm okay with starting at a position that might not be the same as what I used to be, and being open to that. And that, I think, is a very that is something that everyone has to deal with in their own way. And for me, it came a lot because I was mentally prepared. I'm like, this is going to happen, and my friends had warned me about it. So I guess, but if you're not mentally prepared, it's harder for you to accept it or to get used to it or whatever.